Hi there, welcome back to the Kenny Veach Cave mystery. Today I wanted to do a direct response to Atari in response to answering a question, an encounter Atari had in the past. If I'm correct in saying from what I saw in the message elsewhere, it was just before the HLN documentary of Kenny Veach being released publicly, if I'm correct in saying, just before that. Would that be in 2021? Correct me if I'm wrong. Apologies there if there's any mistakes made, okay? The release date of the documentary online says in 2021, I guess November time. I might have made a reference to it in early 2022, but that could have been like adding on from what was previously said back in 21. That's why sometimes I get confused between the years. And as well, because of covering the Dylan Rounds case in mid to late 2022, it's hard trying to remember when I transitioned from one case to another and when the documentary was released about Kenny Veach, right? So hopefully people understand there. But just to dial it back a little bit, I looked at one of your messages, Artari, message elsewhere, your screenshot or photo, or from your short video, a video on your channel, if I'm correct in saying, a photo or like a screenshot from your perspective of an individual reaching out to you before that documentary aired. And it was some guy, supposedly, a sheet of paper with lines, boxes going across with everyone's name mentioned on it, like a list, correct? Jeff Clark's name mentioned on it. I can't remember. I think I only saw like one or two pictures. Apologies there. Maybe Jeff Clark's name was mentioned on it, but it was a blank box. Is that what you, Jeff Clark, was referring to when you said your name was ignored, or details was ignored about your name next to a blank box? Let me know, Jeff. As said, I'm just responding back to a particular piece of the question today, okay? Not the full picture, but part of it, which is the most critical point. And it's based from my experience, Atari. You're not the only one in which some person has reached out over time, okay? If you wonder why I'm talking slow, or anybody, there's been misunderstandings in recent time, of course. Maybe a language barrier, vocabulary used different to other people. So if I try and tone it back, slow down when talking, it should be easier to understand, okay? So, you're wondering, Artari, who is this individual to have reached out, approached you with a list of all the names of the hikers and people investigating on the case? As for the true identity of the person, honestly, I can't fully remember, but I have encountered that individual in the past, okay? Just as a heads up and a backstory. The moment I saw your short video, Altari, of that photo screenshot of that guy with the list, the paper, and it looked like a workbench in the background with paint stains or splatters in the background, it took me 0.5 seconds to relate, to just know within, okay? As soon as I saw that photo, I was like, oh shit, I remember that. I remember that photo, or something similar. I remember that sheet of paper with all the names of hikers on. I remember that workbench in the background. Yeah, not fully completed, that sheet of paper. I remember. And you know why I remember Artari? Is because in 2021, at some point, it would have been on Instagram, because I wasn't on Twitter at the time. Yes, it was Instagram. A guy reached out to me, the same guy that reached out to you, okay? Harmless individual from the looks of it, nothing to worry about. But let me just explain a little bit more, just so you're at ease and at comfort, okay? This individual that reached out to me in 2021, I'm under the assumption I was the only person that guy was reaching out to, okay? Maybe because I covered it often or I had a lot of videos. So they thought, right, here's the go-to place that documents everything, mentions timestamps and timelines. Let's join on in with the discussions. I believe the guy that reached out to me, it was obviously and definitely a male, maybe a bigger frame, okay, a bigger build, may have had a beard, but a very light one, okay. Were they bold? Can't quite remember there. They had a profile picture of their face, but it's hard to remember everything because that individual back then, there was no concern or need to remember that event, okay? This event that did happen was the equivalent of a supposed hiker saying they're thinking of going out there into the desert, but you never really hear back from them again. That's kind of the experience that I had. So initially in 2021, when this guy reached out to me, he was interested about the case. As for his backstory, his back history, his background, I can't remember. I don't know if they explained in detail or not, but they were interested in the case about Kenny Veach and the M Cave, but they were also very interested in trying to construct a complete timeline. So maybe this guy was influenced by my videos of the timeline of the mine shaft of the different hikers going through the years from 2015, 16, all the way up at the time to about 2021 and onwards eventually, right? So the guy that reached out to me was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna try and create a complete timeline of every single event, every single date timestamp by every single person that's investigated out there and hikers. And they already had maybe a small list of people. They might have asked me, do you know anyone else? And I would have mentioned the odd name, okay, just to complete that timeline. He even shared with me a photo. I don't know if it was on the same day or maybe 2 weeks later at the time. The guy showed a photo of a sheet of paper or two, which had lines going across and the odd few names filled in and a few details filled in as well. Was it the same photo what you received, Artari? There's a chance because I did relate to it. I do remember seeing something like that or something similar. And when I say something similar, maybe the time he reached out to me, it was in its early stages, an uncompleted sheet of paper with less details compared to the photo you received or so, right? Why would a guy like that have then reached out to you and if anyone else? Maybe because it was part of trying to document and get everybody's names of who's been involved in the case to complete that timeline, to then share it with everyone in the future. The guy told me that it would probably take many, many months to complete because there's so many details and events and a range of different people that have got involved in the case. From the hikes to just the findings when things came about, Crystal Skull being noticed, Sword Intent, but maybe that wouldn't apply, or would it apply in 21? Probably, or onwards would have been included, likely. And you know, some other findings along the way, like Scott Natal come across those underpants in the desert, the discovery of the supposed covered up M Cave, you know, all the different types of findings from the hikers themselves to when they went out, but then also when other YouTubers and people online documented it and picked up on it and found other stuff too. It was about collecting all of that together in the correct order in one place. and he had multiple sheets of paper. He had a range of different names written on, right? And it seems to check out inconsistency with what you received, Atari, okay? Now, with him reaching out to you, besides like showing a list of names, did he ask any questions? Was he like, what have you been up to in the case? What have you discovered? Do you know anything? Do you know the time of this or the date of that, the year of this? Feel free to leave your thoughts down below, okay? But my encounter with this individual was limited back then and short-lasting. I think maybe a few weeks up to a month or so later, I messaged the person back asking how are things going. I think they may have said they're busy or things going on in life, but they're still trying in the background with the list, with the timeline, the timestamps. It's just taking quite some time. I'm not quite sure if the person said it could take 6 months or longer, but you know, the way this case has gone, right, and all this coverage with time, and you're trying to document every piece of it, no wonder why it would take quite some time. Did the guy ever complete the list? I don't know, never heard from them ever again. They could be watching this right now. They could return back in the future, okay? But they didn't cause me any harm. They didn't cause me any trouble. They didn't threaten. They didn't act weird. They were just simply interested in the case, and they simply wanted to document every event from every hiker to every investigator on this case, to order it in the correct way of when things played out, so then maybe it's easier to look back on in the future. I can understand that method as to what the guy was doing, and the photos, the sheets of paper, what you saw with all the names on, listed in a certain order, with dates as well next to them of certain information or events. Something similar happened to this, but in the Dylan Rounds case, okay? In the Dylan Rounds case, there was an individual known as Quintessential Organics who created an Excel spreadsheet of every single event, and it was long, extremely long. Every single event, every single fact, every single speculation or gossip or supposed event that did happen, with the date, the time, the year, and even the reference of where it came from and the exact video where it was spoken about. It was very precise, very specific, and even color-coded as well, in which some of it true, others in doubt, some completely confirmed, right? Green, red, amber, you get the idea, okay? It was laid out in almost the perfect order from the year 19 something maybe, or early 2000s, all the way up to 2022 of the Dylan Rounds case. So past events before Dylan went missing, which could have tied in, and also present events at the time of what could have been involved in Dylan's disappearance. So yeah, maybe it was done and structured in a better way there because it was on the computer, whereas this guy in the Dylan Rounds case is writing it by hand, which is more time consuming. But in terms of the motive and the aim, it's innocent. It's to be able to document everything in one place, to make it easier for other people to come on in, to listen, to look and learn, etc. Okay? So I do believe with a certain degree of confidence that the guy that reached out to me is most definitely the same person that reached out to you based off those photos. What you received is what I received. And I believe that the guy reached out to me first before he reached out to you. Okay, did he reach out to anyone else? I'm not sure. But I just, you know when you get that feeling, right? And you see something and you know you've seen it before, and you've seen that handwriting before. Well, it all links back to my first encounter with that guy, okay? No trouble. The person seems like a good individual. That's it. I can understand how, like you, Artari, you've been approached, things have happened over time, a dark presence, like those documents, almost like a gang stalking method of intimidation, intervention, whether it be to get a hold of you or to get information out of you. Yes, it can get a bit crazy and uncomfortable. And when stuff's like that, and your senses are heightened, if a genuine person comes along and does similar stuff, but they don't mean it with nasty intent, they're being innocent, you may think they're a bad person as well. That's normal. That's normal behaviour. It's unfortunate, but it can happen. So that event, what you're referring back to, back in 2021, and you've just brought it to light publicly or started talking about it again, whichever way, okay? It's come into discussions recently. I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, I said, I've not checked every single message of yours because there is a method to my ways and a pace, okay? Hopefully you understand, Artai. But reference of handwriting. I might be jumping ahead. Let me know if I'm right or wrong in your thinking. Were you influenced by that recent finding by J. Chuck of that cache in which the plank of wood going across near to the mineshaft had writing on it, food, water, fire, and rest in peace, Kenny Veach, that the writing there looked similar to the handwriting style of that guy that reached out to you in 2021? Is that what you're referring to? Correct me if I'm wrong. Because I guess if we're talking about handwriting, how often do people handwrite in this case? Not often. Most of the conversations, discussions occur online, digitally, via typing, texting, emailing, or commenting, right? But to receive a handwritten letter, note, message, a handwritten form of media which you received, which I received, I couldn't understand why in recent time that past memory would come to your conscious mind and you would compare, contrast to the recent findings of J. Chuck. That supposedly, if I'm correct in saying, if I'm on your wavelength, that the writing on that plank of wood is the same to the writing, handwriting style as to what you saw back in 2021. Is that what you're getting at? I've not had enough time to compare with that plank of wood and that writing on a sheet of paper, okay? But if it's the same individual, let's just say, there's a chance it was done for good reason. So supplies for other people, looking out for other people. Just like how the guy wanted to do a timeline for other people, to make it easier for other people. Caring, understanding, seems like a reasonable person. But is it for definite that the guy that reached out back in 21 is the same guy that supposedly writ on that plank of wood? I personally don't know. I've not had enough time to look and compare. But when I do get time, I will have a brief look. I will check just to see. And I'll let you know, Atari, if I agree with you or disagree with you, okay? I just wanted to primarily respond to your original question of a guy reaching out with photos, sheets of paper of everybody's names. It's not dodgy, it's not creepy, it's not a distraction, it's none of that. It's just a person trying to learn about the case and gather all the information into one place. And it started off with the person reaching out to me first, okay? Now, could anyone at any point have a go at me and say, well, why did you not mention it in the past? Well, it's like how there'll be many other people out there will have private conversations and simple conversations with others out there that won't bring everything to the light in the public, because not everything has to, not everything needs to, right? If it's just a simple person with a question or wanting to take it upon themselves to engage in the case, well, that's between you and the individual that reached out to you, right? There's a reason, a personal connection, a level of trust, and maybe a form of privacy to an extent. Other people are different. Some just reach out in the comments and say, I'm going here, I'm going there, I'm going to do this, okay? Doesn't always happen though, does it? Take in mind Atari. Besides that guy reaching out in 2021, there was another guy, probably a few months ago now, quite a few months ago. I can't remember the person's name on the spot, but I believe Sharon Pilgrim, as much as you may not, see eye to eye, I think Sharon Pilgrim is subscribed to the hiker that said that they were going to go out there at some point. When was that comment? When did it come about? I strongly believe it occurred late 2023, around the time I returned back for the first time in the Kenny Veach case. As you know, 2022 was when I last covered Kenny Veach, transitioned onto Dylan Rounds for 2 years or so. 2023, breaking away partially from Dylan Rounds towards the end of the year and talking about Kenny Veach. It brought attention, it brought people back, and new people got interested, including some other guy that was interested in hiking out there. He said he was going to take cameras, he was going to record, he was going to do a lot hands-on and investigate, and even, I think, go up to the mine shaft as well, okay? Did he? We never really heard back from him. Another mystery? Nah. Did it, didn't it? I found out, though, somehow, I came across the person's channel, and they did have a video on their channel. Can't remember the name, can't remember the details, but I think Sharon Pilgrim is subscribed to that channel, so you'll be able to find it that way. But basically, short story is they uploaded a video to their channel, a short video of them down Joe May Road, parked up, cooking, and that was it. No footage of hiking. So the person drove down there, had some food, and did what then? I don't know. Did they record it? Maybe. Are they busy? File size too big, not able to get it out there so other people can see it immediately? There's a chance. From late 2023 going into 2024, there might be a delay. Who knows? But it seems like that the person did actually go out there, right? They did. Could they be responsible for the plank of wood? Look at it this way. If in late 2023 or so, somebody is inspired to go out there, right? And they go out there, supposedly. And then the next thing you know, Jay Chuck is out there in the new year of 2024, just happens to find a geocache, planks of wood stacked on top of one another, etc. Is there a small chance that there's a connection there? That the guy that was interested in going out in 2023 did put that plank there and write on it. Is there a small chance, a possibility? Maybe. So, hopefully that answers your original question. At some point, I'll try and look at your other messages, Atari, and if they need to be answered, I'll try and respond. But I hope you understood the original question being answered. I've encountered the person, no problems. Maybe they reached out to you because they just wanted to share their progress or they had questions. I wouldn't say they're a threat. Harmless, at least from my experience. As we know, it can differ from person to person, but all I can say is from what I've seen and what I've witnessed, okay? That might help you. It might help calm you down in some way. As for anything else, we'll get to eventually, okay? If Jeff Clark's name was blanked or missed out on the sheet of paper from that, if that's what it's in reference to, I believe it's because the guy was just focusing on one YouTube channel, in a certain order. look at this channel, look at all the details, all the findings, timestamps, and then move on to the next channel, do so much, maybe move on to the next channel, research, may skip one channel here and there, could have been Jeff Claus, and then return back in the future. It probably wasn't done in the most, formal, categorized ways, but they had a method to their actions which worked for them. Will they ever reach out? Don't know. We'll see with time. Hopefully, there are no complications or misunderstandings here, and that should be settled for now. I do have a Dylan Rounds video to cover later, which I need to focus on next. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye, good night for now.